You are now tuning into the Resilient Podcast. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Resilient Podcast. I am your host, Rob Aurelius. This is the second episode that I do solo since the departure of my former co-host partner, Josh. So in episode 3, I talked about the changes. I talked about everything that has been happening since, and I do have some good news for everyone. This episode, as you can see, for those that are watching this on YouTube, I still don't have a mic and I still don't have headphones, and that's because my laptop is on its way. It's finally been fixed. You know, I did mention in the last episode that my laptop had some water damage. So, or maybe I did not. I can't remember. But anyways, my laptop has had some water damage for some time now, and I just didn't want to pay an arm and a leg to fix it. You know, it's my baby. It's my favorite device, and I finally found someone. My good friend Trey recommended someone. His name is James, and James apparently made it brand new, and I can't wait to receive it. And once I receive it, you guys are going to see me with a microphone. You're going to see me with a headset. And also, before I get into anything, and before I even forget, because it's just been a day, I just wanted to let you guys know that by next episode, we will have officially our first guest for the show. I don't know who it is yet. I have to think about it. I do have a list of people that I've written names down. I've already written down their names. And it's a long list. You know, at first, I remember saying to myself, how am I going to find people to interview for this podcast? How am I going to find people to even want to be a part of this podcast, or people that I'm interested in? And then the next thing you know, here I am writing down a list of names of people. So I hope, as a matter of fact, I'm manifesting that every single person on that list that I have so far, I will be interviewing them at some point. And I look forward to it. But also in the meantime, I am looking for a co-host, and I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be someone that I know already. I don't know if it's someone that I don't know. I prefer if it's someone that I don't know, so that we can get to know each other through the podcast, you know. But listen, if anybody's listening out there and anybody is interested in co-hosting the Resilient Podcast with Rob Aurelius, just let me know. And I don't want to sound like, oh, he's looking for a co-host and he's actually announcing it on the actual podcast. But hey, you never know, right? The power of networking. This is how I've made my contacts, you know, by making announcements of certain things. But anyways, this is going to be probably a short episode. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes you just don't know how long an episode's going to last, depending what subject we're talking about, what subjects that we're covering, or, you know, what topics we're talking about. But because I am solo, there's not really much to talk about. There will be a lot to talk about when there will be certain guests on the show. But for now, I want to keep these episodes short, brief, straight to the point. So this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about reflecting. So I was, talking about my birthday, which passed recently, my 30th birthday, and I spent it by myself. Originally I was supposed to be on a cruise somewhere in the Caribbean, and my ex-girlfriend actually gave me two gifts last year for Christmas. Well, out of the gifts that she gave me, because she gave me more than two gifts, but these two particular gifts were Christmas themed, and they were actually a passport book and a passport wallet. And unfortunately, due to the fact that we broke up in March, we weren't able to go on that trip. And I needed to find what to do immediately. So I went to one of my favorite places, which is Hartford, Connecticut. And I did have a good time. I will be honest. It wasn't what I expected. It wasn't how I wanted to spend my 38th birthday, because I wanted to spend it with someone that I really truly cared for and love, and someone that was special to me. And especially how I celebrated her birthday last year, I thought that the way my birthday was going to be celebrated was pretty much reciprocation. Unfortunately, my birthday was not celebrated, at least not by her. So I went out to Hartford, Connecticut, and I spent some time with my friend James. I couldn't spend time with my friend Jerry, who was the owner of the cigar shop that I go to, because unfortunately Jerry was under the weather. But I was able to spend it with James. James got me a really nice cigar, and this cigar is actually an Opus X. And for those of you who don't know, Opus X is a cigar that's made by the Fuente family. And Opus X cigars are very celebratory, very expensive, and one of a kind, very unique. And I'll be honest, I think I may have had an Opus X maybe once or twice my entire life. And it's been a long time since I had Opus X. So, I put that Opus X away in my humidor. And obviously, for those of you who do know what Opus X is, then, you already know what I'm talking about. So I got an Opus X from James. Jerry had called James from his house and said, listen, I know that Rob's there, and I know that his birthday passed, so I just wanted to give him a gift. So he gave me a cigar as well too. So I got a very nice cigar, which is a Padron. So again, for those of you who know cigars, know that Padrones are very unique and great cigars. And to me, Padrones, I used to smoke them before, when I first got into the cigar business. But to me, Padrones, they're very fancy. They're a bit pricey, and they're just, there's an art to cigars. And, maybe in one episode, I will talk about cigars, especially if I got my buddy Matty Rock on this show, because Matty could talk to you about cigars for days, right? And Maddie's one of the people, well, actually, Maddie is the person that got me into cigars. When I met Maddie, I had tried cigars maybe in the past a few times, and I used to smoke Romeo and Juliet's, and I'll be honest, I didn't even know how to smoke them properly. I didn't even know that you had to cut a cigar. So for those that don't know about cigars, if you ever want to try a cigar, first thing you got to do is you got to cut it. And you can't just cut it with anything. It's got to be with a cigar cutter. So I would just, I don't know, punch a hole through them or do something weird and then smoke them. And man, when I finally learned how to actually cut a cigar, it was a no-brainer. But like I said, there will definitely be an episode in the future, or a few episodes, where we talk about cigars. This episode, we're going to talk about reflection. So, getting back to my birthday, I got some gifts here and there from a few people, and I'm very thankful for that. It really meant a lot to me, because I feel that the biggest gift I could have gotten this year was exactly that gift that I wish I would have received, which was the trip to the Caribbean. It was going to be the first time that I was going to get on a cruise, and it was going to be the first time that I was going to be out of the country. That's why I needed to get my passport. During Christmas, we talked about it, and I was so excited. And I will be honest, when I received those gifts, at first I was like, oh, okay. But, sometimes we don't appreciate things at first, and then something has to happen for us to finally appreciate it. And that's how I felt after my ex-girlfriend and I broke up. I still have them. I was thinking of getting rid of them. I was thinking of burning them. I was thinking about, just getting rid of them, discarding them. But now I don't know if it's a good thing to hold on to them as a memory, because it's something that was given to me by her. And, I know at some point through this healing journey, I'm going to have to put certain things behind. And all I can say is I'm not ready at this very moment to get rid of those two objects. At some point, maybe I will. Maybe I never will. Maybe someday when I'm old and gray, I can show them to my future grandchildren, if I ever have any, and tell them why I held on to it for so long. And, again, reflecting. But before I get deep into this episode, two things I want to say. First and foremost, I want to wish Happy Pride to everyone that celebrates. Happy Pride Month to all my friends, associates, colleagues, everyone from the LGBT community. I believe that love is love. I believe that everyone has the right to love whoever they want. And like I say pretty much all the time, if you look at my social media, if you look at my Instagram, if you look at my Twitter, if you look at my Facebook, I'm always saying love somebody today. And that means anyone, a man, a woman. And like I said before, love is love. And I don't discriminate. I love everyone. I respect everyone, as long as everyone respects me in return. So again, Happy Pride. I love you guys. Love each and every single one of you. And remember, you have an ally here. Also, during the month of June, it's also Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know that we just celebrated Mental Health Awareness Month for the month of May. But June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's very important to me when we discuss mental health. I talk about mental health pretty often, but on the months that we can talk about it a lot, we can celebrate it. It means a lot to me. Last month, I received a t-shirt from the WWE, and it was for mental health awareness. And it's the first time that WWE has ever celebrated mental health awareness. And they did through a partnership with Ad Council and Love Your Mind. Love Your Mind is an organization that recently was created through Ad Council. And I look forward to the day that I can work with them, because if I could align with these people and go around the world and just talk about mental health, period, not just men's mental health, but mental health overall, it would be an honor, a privilege, because again, I love talking about mental health. If I can help someone feel better, if I can help someone realize that they're not alone, because remember, folks, you're not alone. 8 billion people in this world, you're not alone. You may feel alone, but you're not alone. I suffer from mental health. There's so many people that suffer from mental health, and we are in this battle together. And one thing we're not going to do is ever give up. So for this month, I want to open up, the floor to all my brothers, my friends, my colleagues, associates, even acquaintances, all males, to, if you need something, if you feel that you're alone, if you feel that you're going through something, I'm here. You can reach out to me through social media, on my social platforms. If you have my phone number, reach out to me. But if you don't have my phone number, reach out to me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. Reach out to me. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's make you feel better. Trust me, I have not been feeling my best since this year started. January started pretty rough for me. And the only thing that I was looking forward to that month was this trip that I had to Tampa. And when I went out there, I felt so good. I felt so at peace. I didn't want to leave. And then I had to come back home. And I came back in February. And then in mid-February, I ended up going to Philadelphia. And I didn't know that going to Philadelphia in February around that time was the last time that I was going to see my ex-girlfriend. That was the last time that I saw her, February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day. And the reason why I saw her before Valentine's Day is because on Valentine's Day, it's her dog's birthday. And she wanted to celebrate his birthday. She's always celebrated his birthday. And it was a weekday. And, we were not on the best of terms at that time. So for me to think that it was okay to say, hey, let's go on a date. Let's, go out and have Valentine's dinner. As much as I wanted to, as much as it kept playing in my head so many times, like, you should have done that, you should have done that, I don't think it would have worked. And the only reason why is because her and I were at a point in our lives already where I was trying to mentally prepare myself for the worst, which was the breakup. And she had already, I guess, had been emotionally checked out of the relationship since the end of December. And in January, we had a conversation before I went on my business trip. And that's where she first spoke about how she felt about the relationship itself. Broke my heart. I was sad. And I heard her. And what I said to her at the end of the conversation was, I heard everything you said, but please do not give up on us. Please, let this relationship grow and blossom. This is just the beginning. And, I guess she held on for a bit, but until she realized that she really, really didn't want to be in this relationship anymore. Ultimately, it led to our breakup, which was in March. And, it's been rough for me. I am still in the beginning of the healing phase, right? Because this happened very recently. This breakup happened in March. It is now June. And, there's already people that I've spoken to about this, and some of them have suggested move on. It's time for you to move on. It's time for you to, start talking to new people, or it's time for you to start focusing on yourself and, just take time to heal. And, I listen to what everybody says, but ultimately at the end of the day, the decision that I make is my decision, right? How I feel, how I want to go about certain things. And, we're at a point right now where when we broke up, she said to me that we were still able to, remain friends and follow each other on social media and whatnot. And that we were able to communicate from time to time. And I don't know, man, when April came around and I went to Philadelphia for WrestleMania, and I realized that everything I wanted to do out there was with her, because that was the original plan. When we started dating, we actually met on August 18th. August 18th was the day that WrestleMania tickets went on sale in Philly. And, on Ticketmaster. And I went out there to promote the on sale. I met her, and, we had a good time. And I told her, listen, WrestleMania is coming here next year. And throughout the entire relationship, I kept talking to her about WrestleMania. I'm pretty sure I spoke about WrestleMania so much that she was probably just over it. But I hope that she was able to see how excited I was, how passionate I was, because it was the 40th anniversary of WrestleMania. And, it was not just going to be any WrestleMania. It was going to be one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. The rematch between Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, versus the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns. Roman, was champion for over 1,300 days. And he finally got dethroned at WrestleMania. Cody was able to finish his story. And I was so motivated from everything, from the minute that myself and my ex-girlfriend broke up. I just found this profound motivation that I didn't know. Like, here's the thing. If we were still together today, would I have started this podcast? I'm not sure. And the reason why is because even though back in like late 2023, I reached out to my former co-host, Josh, in Philadelphia, and said to him, I want to start a podcast next year, but I just don't know what we're going to call it, what it's going to be about. If her and I were still together, would I start this podcast? I don't know. So, when they say everything happens for a reason, I truly think that everything happens for a reason. When we broke up, I mentioned to her that she had helped me find some type of motivation, and she had inspired me, because it goes back to where she mentioned she was testing her mic. And again, one of the questions that she asked me was, what does Rob like? What makes him happy? What makes him sad? What makes him cry? And, all these questions that were asked. And when I started to think about those questions, I said to myself, well, one thing that I want to do for sure is test my might as well. So I created this podcast. And the name Resilience, first, we started off as the Resilience Podcast, right? But, as time went by, it just became so difficult for me to even find my own podcast, because there's so many podcasts out there with resilience, the Resilience Project, the Resilience Series, the Resilience this, the Resilience that. So I said, you know what? Let's just call it the Resilient Podcast. And this is where we are now. We're the Resilient Podcast, the Resilient Pod on social media. And most likely we're probably going to keep it at the Resilient Pod and not even call it the Resilient Podcast anymore, just because I want people to be able to find it. I remember when episode 3 was downloaded, I couldn't find it for the first 20 minutes, my own podcast. I literally had to go on Spotify for podcasters, my account, and that was the only way I was able to hear it, because of course I could just go on YouTube and watch the video. But sometimes I like to hear it before I watch the actual podcast on YouTube. So don't be surprised if I rename this again to The Resilient Pod. I promise that if I change it to that name, folks, I'm not changing it after that ever again. But, here we are. I find this motivation to create a podcast, and Josh asks me, well, what are we going to call it? What are we going to talk about? And I said, let's talk about resilience. And that's where I said, let's call it the Resilience Podcast. And, resilience is a word that has been haunting me for the last few years. And I'm going to tell you where I first saw the word resilience for the first time. A few years ago, the San Francisco Giants, the baseball team, was in the playoffs for the National League, and they wanted to head to the World Series. And that entire season, they referred to themselves as resilient as fuck. It's AF. So when I first read that, I was like, that's interesting. And then I looked up the word resilience, and I wanted to get the true meaning of it, the true definition. But then I said to myself, the dictionary is always going to give us what the meaning is supposed to be. But us as humans, we can always share our thoughts as to what a word can mean to them. And for example, resilience. Since I've started the podcast, I've asked literally almost everyone, people that I have thought about possibly interviewing in the future, friends, associates, what does resilience mean to you? And the answers are phenomenal. Everybody has a different answer. Nobody answered the same, nobody. And I said, wow, amazing. And, So I start this podcast. Well, Josh and I start this podcast together. And now here we are 4 episodes in. And the things I want to do with this podcast, the level that I want to take it to, man, you guys don't even know where I'm coming from with all the stuff that I am going to present you guys with in the near future. The things I want to do with the Resilient Podcast, it's going to blow your mind. It really is. And I've been strategizing, I've been thinking, I've been creating, I've been, writing things down. I've been making phone calls, just talking people's ears off. This is not just going to be a podcast. This is going to be bigger than that. And it's not just going to be any other podcast. And for those podcasts that are out there that are sharing the name right now, the Resilient Podcast, the Resilience Podcast, my podcast, with all due respect, is going to be the one that stands out the most. Because the things I want to do, the heights I want to take it to, it's going to blow your mind. So here we are. We're in this full force. And of course, originally I wanted to do this all with Josh. Josh decided that he could not be fully invested in this project right now, so he stepped down. And I'm not sure if Josh will ever come back. And if he ever decides to come back, hey man, I'll be waiting here for you. But for now, I've been left in charge. I have to hold down the fort. This is my yard now. And I got to focus. I got to do what I need to do to make this podcast the best. I got to do what needs to be done so that these first few episodes that you guys are going to watch and hear, you're going to be like, okay, where is he going with this? How is he going to make this interesting? To the point where you guys are like tuning in every time that a new episode drops. And like I said before, when this, from the first episode, this is not a podcast that you're going to hear every week. I mean, it's not going to drop every week. This is a podcast that's going to, from the best of my ability, you will hear 2 different episodes every month, depending my schedule, because I do travel. I do get involved with a lot of things. Remember, I do run ARCG Media at the end of the day. And especially now that I'm doing this podcast alone with really no help and no support, aside from the people that help me edit it and whatnot, I got to make sure that I make time. And this is my new baby. This is my new venture. This is my new project. So I will make time. But I got to make sure that the time that I do dedicate to the Resilient Podcast is effective. So for now, please expect 2 episodes a month. One in the beginning of the month and one towards the end of the month. But if I can eventually give you guys 3 episodes, maybe even 4, let's see. I might be pushing too soon. But please enjoy it. And folks, please feel free to share any feedback. Please feel free to mention what you want to hear, what subjects. And I have received requests already from some people that are interested in even coming on the podcast. So right now what I'm doing is I'm building its platform. We recently reached about 1,000 followers on Instagram. So thank you so much to everyone that helped us reach that milestone. Twitter still needs work, I'm using my platform as much as I can to push it. We also have a TikTok. We don't have an official Facebook page. I'm just posting everything about the podcast and on the ARCG Facebook page, and we don't have a website. So in order for you guys to see episodes of the Resilient Podcast, all you have to do is just go to arcgmedia.com/the Resilient Pod. And it'll take you straight to the YouTube videos of you'll see every single episode. and the latest episode is always going to be on the top. So again, I want to thank all of those for supporting me on this journey. Episode number 4. I promise you episode number 5 is going to be much, much, much better because I will have a guest. And most likely episode 6, I'll have a guest as well too. Again, I got to think about it. Who's going to be on the podcast? But truly, from the bottom of my heart, folks, I'm humbled. I feel blessed. And again, the things that I want to do for this podcast, it's really going to leave you guys with your jaws open. And, recently I spoke to a gentleman by the name of Blue, and he told me that there's a possibility that we can work. Well, not a possibility, but that we can work together to bring some stuff to life for the Resilient Podcast. But I will get into that in further detail, episode number 5. See, I'm already ahead. Episode number 5, I'll make that announcement. For those of you that already know, if you look at social media, you'll probably see what I'm talking about. But I'll make the full announcement on episode number 5. So, let's go back to reflecting. This year, I've been reflecting a lot. I reflected a bit last year, but what I can say is I got in a relationship midsummer, well, the end of the summer pretty much. And once I got in that relationship, I was just so happy. I was so happy to finally find someone that was into me. I had been single for 3 years. I had been healing for 3 years. And finally I met someone, and I was just so happy that even though I still, was working and getting things done, there was a few things that I was working on that I kind of pushed it aside. And one of those things was reflecting, self-reflecting. I self-reflected a lot in 2021. This is what caused me to go to California in the beginning of the year. I had never been to California before, and I went to Bakersfield, California. I flew in through LAX, and my associate and friend and business partner, Victor, picked me up from LAX, and we drove down to Bakersfield about 2 hours, and I was in Bakersfield for a good month. I was helping Victor launch Nala Health, which is his CBD brand. And I also was doing some things for myself, and I was self-reflecting a lot. Then I moved on to San Francisco at the end of the month, and I spent most of February in San Francisco, and I spent it with Donna. And for those of you who don't know who Donna is Dave Bautista's mother. Dave Bautista is a former WWE wrestler, future WWE Hall of Famer, and actor. For those of you who know, one of his most famous roles is the Guardian of the Galaxy. And I spent some time with her. Donna was like a mom to me. She was like the mom that I've always wanted. And, I just felt like she was a safe space, that she was a safe haven. And she told me this a while before I even went down. She said to me, if you ever find your way in California, please make sure you stop by San Francisco. Please make sure you come see me. And here's the thing, during the time, it was 2021, COVID was still a thing. People were still quarantining. People were still wearing masks. There were still lockdowns everywhere, right? And the vaccine wasn't even really available yet. So I remember her telling me, if you ever come down to California, please come visit me. And when I told her that I was going to Bakersfield, she says, well, before you go back home to New York, make sure you come to San Francisco. And I remember saying to her, Donna, I can't, this COVID thing. And she had said to me that she had COVID previously. So I said, what if I get COVID out here? And then I got to quarantine. or I get COVID and don't even know that I have COVID, and then I go out there and I give it to you. I can't compromise immunity. You know, Donna's a much elderly person. Thankfully, I didn't get COVID while I was out in California, even though there was so many cases out there. And she didn't get COVID while I was out there. So everything worked out pretty well. But that entire time that I spent in California, I want to say about a month and a half, I took it to self-reflect. When I came back to New York, even though I was sad and depressed to be back in the East Coast, I felt rejuvenated. I felt clean. I felt fresh. I felt like it was a fresh start, a new beginning. And that's because I had been in a previous relationship that ended in October of 2020. So by the time Christmas came, I said, I need to spend New Year's somewhere that's not here, and I need to figure out where. And all it took was me being spontaneous. And I reached out to Victor probably like a few days before the new year. And I said, Victor, this is probably like a few days before Christmas or after Christmas. I can't really remember. I reached out to Victor and I was like, Victor, I'm on a tight budget. I don't have much money. I don't really have anywhere to stay. I'm not asking you to help me out, but all I'm asking for you is to help me find somewhere to stay. But I need to go to Cali, and I need to go to Cali now. And again, like I said, I've never been to Cali before. And Victor didn't question. Victor didn't ask anything. All he said was, okay, we'll talk about it when you get here. And he says, when do you want to come by? And I said, well, I want to spend New Year's out there. So if I book a flight for December 30th, do you think it's possible? He said, yeah. And he said, I'll have a place for you to stay. And, I've told Victor this on the phone a few times. I'll never be able to thank him enough, but he helped me. He really did. He helped me during a time that I was down, that I was hurt, that I felt like I had hit rock bottom. And like I said, I'll never thank him enough. So now, fast forward, 2021 becomes one of the best years for me. I start to travel a lot, so not only did I go to California, I actually went back to California 3 more times after that. So when I came back home in February, I was immediately back in California, I believe in March. And then I went back again in May. And it was the first time that I spent my birthday in the West Coast. And then the last time I went to California, up until last year when I went to Los Angeles again, I went to San Francisco one more time. So I went to San Francisco 4 times in 2021. January, well, technically February, March, May, and October. Man, I had a great time. And I haven't been to San Francisco ever since. And I look forward to the day that I go back to San Francisco. I miss San Francisco. I actually have an office out there. ARCG Media has an office out there. And man, the minute I get to go down there and talk about resilience with people from San Francisco, it's going to be great. I look forward to it. I look forward to going down there, meeting up with Carl, who works for ARCG, and having him help me, find the right places to go to talk about the Resilient Podcast. We're going to go on a tour. It's one of the things that I have in store for this journey. So I'm just putting it out there now. We're going to go on a tour soon. So, up until last year, I had not been to the West Coast since 2021. But in 2021, I went to San Francisco. I went to Dallas for the first time. I went to a lot of places. I went to Vegas for the first time. I went to Tampa for the first time because originally I was supposed to go to Tampa in 2020, but because of COVID, we ended up, WrestleMania 37 ended up becoming the makeup for WrestleMania 36 with fans in attendance. And, I went to so many places. I was in Boston. I was in Providence. I was in Rhode Island. Oh, man, the list goes on and on and on and on. 2021 was one of the best years of my life, but I was single. I focused on myself. I focused on healing. And eventually I was able to kind of like, bury the hatchet with my ex, and we were able to talk, and we became friends for a while. And then shortly after, well, not shortly after that, up until last year, we stopped talking. And we stopped talking because my ex found out that I was dating my new girlfriend, which is, my previous girlfriend, my ex now, right? But before that, we were able to talk about a lot of things. We were able to discuss so many things, and I was able to see how much I had grown, how much I had learned, how much I had healed. The way I reacted to certain things were completely different. That's why with this recent relationship, in the 6 months that I was with my ex-girlfriend, I realized how patient I was. I realized how efficient I was in so many areas. I realized that anger was not something that I went to right away. Anger was something that, when you have anger issues, normally your natural instinct is to get enraged with certain things, right? And I noticed that responding to things were much different. Sometimes I wouldn't even respond to certain things. And I was very proud of myself. And we're going to talk about that on an episode one day. We're going to talk about like anger management. We're going to talk about how to deal with it. But I was very proud of myself. That's why with this relationship, even though it didn't go as planned, it didn't end. First of all, I didn't want it to ever end, but it didn't end on my terms. It ended on her terms. What I could take away from this is that I believe, and I'm pretty sure that she knows this, I did my very best, and I wasn't a bad boyfriend. I was pretty decent. I listened to her. I was there for her just as much as she was there for me. And I wanted to be able to show her how I dealt with pain, trauma, anger, and whatnot. And even though I wasn't allowed to continue, hopefully someday she'll be able to remember that all I wanted was the very best. And she'll probably remember the conversations that we had in her car, in her house, on the phone, of me saying, I just want you to get to the point where you're no longer angry. And when you love someone, you don't want to see that person hurt. You don't want to see that person angry. It kind of bothers you. It makes you hurt and sad that someone you care about, someone you love, is still going through it. So I want to talk about what I was talking about earlier, where I said that I found this profound motivation and inspiration. And a part of that motivation, inspiration, I started writing, something I've never done before. And I went as far as to publish my first article for my company. Technically, almost 11 years later, because I started ARCG in 2013. And, speaking about ARCG, since we've been on that topic, I want to let everybody know that our 11th year anniversary is coming up. On June 18th, 2024, ARCG Media will be celebrating 11 years. And I want to take this moment to thank everyone that has supported ARCG over the years. I want to thank the people that have made it possible. And to name a few, Maddie Rock, my wise man, my special counsel, Carl Title. You have been so pivotal to ARCG. Thank you so much. Oscar Leal. Without Oscar, ARCG would not be where it is. And I want to thank some people from the past who are no longer part of ARCG. I want to thank people like one of my old partners, Matt, and not Matty Rock, but Matthew. Matthew was one of the beginning partners of ARCG, and eventually he realized that ARCG was too big for him, so he decided to move on. But I want to thank people like Rick Waymer, Ricky Royale. He is the R in ARCG. A stands for Aurelius, R stands for Royale. Rick is the person that came up with the name. Rick is the person who helped design ARCG. And even though Rick and I have not spoken in years, I hope that one day he sees one of these or hears one of these episodes of the Resilient Podcast and sees that, wow, ARCG was not just, a marketing company or promotional company. ARCG also created a podcast. But, I want to thank Rick. I want to thank Deja Sid, who was a good assistant. I want to thank another former partner, J.R. Rockefeller. I want to thank some of the people that made things possible for ARCG. Layla, Julia, even Java Record. Java Record is a story for another day. But I want to thank some of the people that helped ARCG. Clients, Gene Snitsky, Prince Nana, Titus O'Neill, and the list goes on and on and on. Cooley Booley, one of my favorite clients. I love Cooley Booley. He started off as Country Boy, and now he is Cooley Booley, a rapper that raps about positivity. Keitra, Lee Meltzer, to name a few more people. Listen, I would have to make a whole episode just to thank all these people. And we're running out of time because I wanted to keep this episode short. But yes, May 18th. I still think we're in May. June 18th and June 19th, ARCG will be celebrating 11 years. Thank you, everyone, from the bottom of my heart. I truly appreciate everyone. Cheers to 11 more. But, I mentioned that I wrote my first article for ARCG. And that article was after WrestleMania. It was everything that I saw, everything that I witnessed, everything that I embodied. And I said, how do I put all of this into words? And I reached out to some people and I asked them, do you think this is presentable? Do you think I could share this with the world? And they're like, yeah. You got to make a few adjustments here and there and whatnot, but I was able to make those changes. And for those of you who want to see this article, the article is available on the ARCG website. Just go to the part where it says publications and you'll see it. My first article ever. But it didn't stop there. I wrote 3 more articles after that. I wrote an article, as I mentioned before, to Roman Reigns, the tribal chief. I wrote an article to Cody Rhodes on finishing his story. And I wrote an article to the final boss, The Rock, thanking him for coming back to the WWE and saving professional wrestling. Because it was going somewhere where, I don't know exactly where, but wrestling wasn't cool for a while. And thanks to people like The Rock, thanks to people like Cody, thanks to people like the tribal chief Roman Reigns, professional wrestling and WWE became cool again. Those articles you can also find in the publication section on the ARCG website. But to say all that, I found this new version of me that I never knew existed, and I'm digging it. I'm loving it. And a lot of it comes from the heartbreak of having to mutually part ways with someone I didn't want to part ways with. Someone who I still care about, still focus, Still think about till this day, and I'm going to be thinking about her for a very, very long time. It's fair to say that she's part of the reason why this podcast exists. And if she ever hears an episode of the Resilient Podcast, if she ever watches an episode of the Resilient Podcast, she's probably going to say, wow, I lit something in him. That spark that she spoke about. But I think this is all I have left. This is all I got for this episode. I do want to thank you guys for tuning in. I do want to, like I said before, by wishing everyone happy Pride. Please be safe out there. Please be safe during the Pride Parade. To any individual, male or female, that wants to talk to me about mental health, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And again, I want to thank everyone that has supported ARCG in the last 11 years. Before I go, I did want to share a piece that I wrote with you guys, that I wrote for you guys. And this is something special. And I wanted to make sure that I read it to you guys before I left. So in every episode, I'm going to be asking, every episode with a guest, I'm going to be asking our guests, what is your message to the world? Today, I want to leave this with you guys, this beautiful message. I hope that your story always is full of nothing but kindness, and may you always have a story of kindness to tell. I want to share this with you all, and this means a lot to me. In life, you'll meet people. You'll meet many different people. Some you'll share experiences and moments with. Some you'll share stories with. Some will leave you with lessons. And some will just pass by. But I pray that you always encounter kind people. I pray you find good people when you really need it. People who will show you kindness that will stay with you for a really long time. I hope your life journey has kind people lurking in every corner, every timeline, waiting eagerly to meet you. I wanted to share with you all because, like I said, I've been writing a lot as of late. And every time I write a piece, the first thing I'm going to want to do is share with you all. To anyone out there that is hurting right now, going through something right now, you are not alone. I'm here with you. I'm fighting this along with you. And like I said before, please don't give up. Life is precious. Life is a gift. And I need you here. And not just me, but your friends, your family, your lover, your pets, your children. They need you. Please be kind to yourself. Please give yourself more grace. And remember, one life to live, live it well. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 4. I cannot wait to show you guys who my new guest will be for episode 5. Thank you. I love you all. For now, peace.